Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to another episode of the Reliability Matters podcast. For those of you who are counting, this is episode number 144. We're the best. We're number one. We're better than them. We've won more awards than any of our competitors. We've all seen those ads. Well, this form of advertising isn't unique, unfortunately. When is the last time it caused you to buy a product based on that ad? I think we all know that answer. There was a time when we relied heavily on print advertising to determine what products were available and from whom. The two primary methods to gain product awareness were print advertising and trade shows. While advertising and trade shows still exist today, they are no longer the primary method of product awareness. 31 years ago, beginning April 30th, 1993, all of that began to change. What happened on April 30th, 1993? Public access to the internet was born. Over the past 31 years, internet technology propelled us into an age of self-discovery. The older generation accuses the younger generation of always having their face in a screen. Well, this may be true. It's not always in TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or Snapchat. People today, particularly younger people, research product technologies and a host of other things online. Consumers today are far more educated on the products they wish to purchase than any time in our history. And what I find to be an exceptional irony, much of the industry responsible for building the technology behind internet connectivity continues to advertise their products in a pre-internet style. What, do you ask, does this have to do with reliability? Well, that's a fair question. Building reliable products requires a net sum of a vast amount of best practices. One of those best practices is ensuring the right products, procedures, specifications, and designs, and so many other factors are implemented. This goal cannot be accomplished by just reading advertisements from sellers. Frequently, engineers struggle to solve problems without a complete knowledge of the root cause of the problem. Particularly today, with so many in-house subject matter experts retiring, and we've talked about the silver tsunami, the great retirement on this show several times, advertisements boasting the number of customers, time in business, and where they place in the hierarchy of competitive products really don't assist the engineer in understanding what the root cause of the problem is and, of course, the potential solution. Over the past several years, several companies in our industry have begun to change their advertising strategies from one of transactional to more of a transformational style. That's to say, they help to connect problems to solutions more than merely hyping products. My guest today fully understands the value and effectiveness of what I like to refer to this as conscious marketing. Rick Short is Corporate Associate Vice President for Indium Corporation. Rick has been with the company since 1984 in capacities including Technical Service Manager, Marketing Director, International Sales Director, Head of Technical Support, and Head of Environmental Health and Safety, in addition to his current role. He has an MBA from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, a bachelor's degree in business management from Utica College, and an associate's degree from Mohawk Valley Community College. I'll talk with Rick about his company's unique approach to education and how that has helped to transform their customer base when I return in just a moment.
Welcome to Reliability Matters, a podcast for the electronic assembly industry. Each episode covers topics related to reliability, best practices, and environmentally responsible assembly techniques, with insights from experts across the electronic assembly industry. Now, here's your host, Mike Conrad.
Well, Rick, your beard has gotten a little whiter and a little longer since that headshot was taken.
Yeah, I'm keeping the old picture.
Yeah, I do the same thing. People have said, I think the picture, my headshot is probably 10 years old, and I'm just going to cling on to my youth as long as possible, at least in pixel format.
People meet me in person, they think I sent my grandfather.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Your grandson sent me. Yeah. Well, thanks for being my guest today. I in the context of admitting things, you and your company, I think, get a lot of credit for inspiring me and my company to change things up a little bit. When we were my company's 32 years old, and so we've gone through the transition of the internet and all of that, and at some point in our journey, and this episode is more about your journey, but just to put it into context, at some point in our journey, I realized that the way we were doing things, while formally effective, just were not as effective anymore. They were boring, and it was just like this definition of insanity, right? Just keep doing the same thing and start expecting different results. So we knew we needed to change something. We had an idea of what we wanted to change it to, but there's a lot of fear involved in leaving the status quo behind, leaving the herd and going off on your own direction. And I stumbled across your company and noticed the way your company was doing things. And I'm like, okay, I was so inspired because I thought, okay, there's a company that's also hit that wall. And you can share later in just a bit what, if there was a wall to hit, and if so, what that was like. But clearly your company was doing things differently. And you specifically, which were kind of the face of that difference, at least from what I can see, we're doing things differently. And it gave me confidence that, well, if I go down, they go down too. So, I like the ship they're on. You built a cool looking ship, and I like that look of that ship, and we're gonna build a ship like it. And so a long belated thanks for the inspiration, because it has been nothing but good, both not just for us, but for our customers for sure, and hopefully for the industry. And I think you could say the same. So, tell me about your journey, Rick, to Indium. What you've been in this. Was Indium your first step into this industry?
No, well, into this industry, yes. Technology and manufacturing, no. I started in 1979 in the aerospace, new process development, research and development world. I was developing materials for fighter jet airframes, and it was a very exciting materials science journey. And I spent about 5 years there. And then in 1983, I realized that being a very gregarious and outgoing person, that working with the same two people in one laboratory for almost 5 years was almost perfect, but there was this social component that was missing, and they were driving me nuts. I was driving them nuts. And I realized I want to do what I'm doing, but I need to do it in a much more dynamic fashion. So I started looking for a job, and I wanted almost nothing to change. And karma came into play because I was the senior researcher, and we were working on a project that required operating on 3 shifts. And so I took first shift and let the other 2 guys take second and third shift, and we had to run this for like a couple weeks actually. And one day, one of the guys came to me and said, it's Christmas time, and I'm engaged, and I want to spend some time with my fiance, and I'm stuck working at night, sleeping in the day, and can you just switch with me so I can be with my fiance? And I said, sure, no problem. And I really did want to be a nice guy and help him out, but I'm the one who got the benefit because the first time I was available during the day, I found the ad for the perfect job for me, and I was available to interview at Indium Corporation. And they said, well, can you come in at Tuesday at 3:00? Of course I can. I can come in anytime because I'm not working first shift this week. And it just worked out beautifully. So I switched from a highly technical material science applications type job that had almost zero social component to this almost the same kind of job, but I was required to talk to customers and work with the market and go out into the industry, and it was just perfect. And I haven't looked back since.
Amazing. Yeah, that's an interesting journey.
It was a total blessing.
Yeah. And well, clearly you're a testament to this, as am I, and other gray hair people in our industry. This is I tease young people coming into the industry. I said, we're a little bit like the mafia. You either leave in a casket or you become a mob boss. But people, this is a nomadic industry within the industry. So people change. You go to a trade show, never trusted a badge because the badges are usually, the last job. But it's very unusual for someone to exit the entire industry. It's kind of a life sentence for whatever reason. And I don't know if that's the same in other industries. I don't know other industries as well, but I do know in this industry, the longer I'm in it, the older we all get. People, and you either die or retire. So that says something about the industry, I think. It probably says something good. People like to complain about their jobs, but they don't leave.
The right place at the right time. Here we are in the 80s, joining the electronics assembly industry. Just as electronics are about to become ubiquitous in everything that we do, there's just no end to the demand for volume, for technology, for enhancements, for understanding. What a perfect time for people at my point of entry, or even today, to join this industry. It's just going to keep exploding.
Yeah, I think we're at the tip of the iceberg. I read a stat just a couple of weeks ago because I was preparing for another episode, and it was, I forget the number. I think I'm going to get it at least in the right proximity, that by 2025, which this stat was published a couple of years ago, so it was like a 4-year forecast. So by 2025, by next year, IoT devices is estimated to top something like $100 billion in more revenue than our industry is seeing today. These are new connected devices going out. And I think there's a little bit of a craziness going on because I like to define Internet of Things as putting electronics in things that don't need them, never had them. It doesn't serve humanity, but we can. Very gadgety, right? Connected toothbrushes. Okay, that's cool, but is it really, can we live without it? Now I sound like my father. But we are seeing it. We're seeing there's not a lot of revolution in the electronics industry anymore. It's mostly evolution because almost everything we have today is just a smaller, faster, cheaper version of what we had 20 or 30 years ago. But I think the entire pace of the evolution is revolutionary, if that makes sense. It's a revolution within an evolution.
But these evolutions in what we, with the assembly side, enable revolutions downstream. One perfect example that comes to mind is AI. Because of the wildly enhanced electronics background and the reduction of cost to produce memory, for example, and computing power, we now have the ability to get incredible responses, answers, information while using a platform like Chat GPT, for example, like instantaneous, deep answers. And this is truly revolutionizing management now.
Yes, that's a great example of the evolution of electronics creating a revolution in application of that evolution. It's we do live in interesting times, that's for sure. And
yeah, the classic first complaint I heard about that was, how are teachers going to know if a student handed in a Chat GPT report versus their own? That's the wrong question. You're putting all the pressure on the student to just put a little citation at the bottom that said, this was generated by me, for me, with help from Chat GPT. What's wrong with that? The whole question should be, what is the teacher going to teach now that this is available?
Right.
It's sort of like being befuddled that I asked you to come over to my house and you got there in 5 minutes, even though you live 5 miles away. And like totally disregarding the fact that I never thought you had an automobile.
Right.
Like, now that you have an automobile, what else can we do? Like, why keep the focus on did the kids steal it or not? Why don't we turn to education and say, what are you teaching now that this tool is so common?
Yeah, it reminds me of the days in my probably high school days, maybe junior high days, where calculators were becoming popular. I'm not talking about scientific calculators, but But, in the 70s, it was just handheld calculators, add, subtract, divide, multiply. And they were banned from schools because they were considered a cheating device. And eventually society, the educational world kind of said, well, they're here. They're now a tool, like a ruler, like a slide rule, like an abacus, those were tools. And to ban them is ignorance. And I feel the same with Chat GPT, that because you have to kind of understand a basis of something to even ask it an intelligent question, because you have to guide it to, give it context, and you have to be able to vet to make sure. Because I've asked a poorly worded question on Chat GPT. I use Chat GPT all the time. And I've asked a poorly worded question, and I've gotten, an appropriate poorly worded reply, well worded, but completely off basis. So you still have to be smart enough to know what question to ask and how to frame it. And, it's just like you have to know how to use a calculator.
The other day, I was hypothetically saying, what if we spun this off and made a whole different department in our company? And because of the growth of what's going on in this activity, what if it was its own department? How would I design this department? What would I bring with me into this department and leave behind? What job descriptions would I require when this new department arose, hypothetically? I literally got the answer to all of these questions in 10 minutes. This has taken me a week of head scratching and thinking and drafting and researching and thinking of and waking up and rewriting it. It would have taken me a week. So the question isn't, did I generate all that myself? The question is, what do I do with the other 38 hours this week?
Yes, I view it as a way to become way more productive than...
Yeah. And you mentioned kids these days, they also have their heads down in their mobile device. I'm 64 years old, and I am famous for startling new hires, these young college people that come into my world, and I say, you guys are criticized for always having your heads down in your phones. People tell you to put them away and get your head in the game. I'm here to tell you that I want to see you with that phone in your hand all the time. If you don't know a term, look it up. You don't know what this means, research it. You want to take notes in your phone so you can immediately send your notes out to the people in the meeting like 2 seconds before the meeting ends? Like, do that. I want you to use that tool. That'd be like me telling you, don't use your car to come over to my house tonight.
Right.
What's the point of that?
Right. For 1,000 years, we got by without cars. Why can't you just walk here? Yeah, I totally see that. So let's talk about cars in an analogous sense. I think the horse and buggy methods of marketing were pre-internet. That's kind of the horse and buggy days, before 1992 or 6, whatever year it was. Back then, people did things differently. Back then, if you were interested in a product, you and I remember these days, you looked at your trade magazine and you found an ad that struck your interest, and you either called the phone number on the ad, or more frequently, at the bottom of the ad, the magazine, the publisher would put a number, like number 10. Circle number 10 for more information. There'd be this snap out, postcard bound in the back of the magazine. You'd snap it out. Bingo card, exactly. And you'd circle number 10, you'd circle number 27, number 142, whatever, corresponding to the ads you had interest in, and you mailed it to the publisher. The publisher then would mail leads to their advertisers. The advertisers would then call the sales rep in the area, and then the sales rep would call you, and next thing you know, they're in your parking lot with a trunk filled with line cards and brochures and samples and, whatever, demo products.
And more than that, because you did it through the magazine structure, you gave all the power to the magazine. You told them what you're interested in. So now, not only does the supplier know that you want to buy or look into XYZ product, the magazine knows that too.
We were the benefactors of that. We advertised in those magazines back then. We were circle number 10, but then a few weeks later, we'd get these companies expressed a general interest in cleaning or soldering materials or whatever. So your leads were shared. You had the first dib at it, right? But then, if you didn't jump on things were shared. And so the consumer relied on advertising to know who the players were or products are. They relied on the sales rep, or at the very least the U.S. mail, but more traditionally the sales rep, to hand deliver brochures, which basically allowed them to read what the company wanted them to read. No more, no less.
Read?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you there.
Only what the company wanted them
Exactly.
to read. No review.
Exactly. It was very filtered. And the sales rep would give the pitch to the consumer, the prospect, based upon the training that they had from their principal. And so it was extremely controlled. And I think what the internet has done is made it possible for all the people you mentor with their heads in the phones to use that head and phone time productively, right? And so obviously your company saw this revolution in information technology. How has your company, in what is still an industry unique form of marketing, not exclusive to your company or my company, but certainly not usual, how has your style of marketing landed on both your company and, more importantly, your customers? Tell me how the transition went. Did you come in one day and said, "Okay, we got to shake things up"? And
yes.
And were you deemed a heretic at one point? Okay, walk me through that process, because other people are probably listening to this saying, "I've had the same idea." How does that work? How did it work for you?
The first thing that started happening was my education, and I went to a lot of forums and seminars and that sort of thing. And the number one question everybody asked each other is, "Oh, well, what are you going to do when your boss shuts you down and doesn't let you do content marketing?" And that's the name of this. That's the root of this whole thing we're talking about. What are you going to do when your boss says, "No way, just run a traditional ad and be like everybody else"? That everybody was afraid of their boss when they wanted to make progress, which sounds insane. And I simply wasn't, because I work at Indium Corporation, and we've got such creative people here, such curious and clever people here. I just knew that it would be okay. So I just walked in and said, "There's a new way to do this, and here's how it goes, and this is how it works. And these are the things that are mysteries to me, but let's all work through it together." And they said, because everybody's got a varying degree of understanding and interest, and so the people that I answered to, they're like, "Yeah, okay, sounds good. We'll keep an eye on you." I didn't get any resistance, because my company is energetic and enthusiastic and loves the new frontier.
Another blessing, yeah.
Well, when you talk about content marketing, you can read. Back then, you couldn't even read a book. There wasn't a book, and you had to sort of figure it out yourself. So I don't claim credit for any original thought at all in this entire process. I just claim credit for like slogging through it. But I created this phrase so that people in my company could understand what we were doing, because I'm not going to ask everybody in my company to read every new textbook that comes out on the subject. So I said, we're going to call this content to contact to cash. In other words, the customers want information. They want hard data. They want real stuff. They don't want spin and glossy, shiny objects. They want Excel spreadsheets and tables of data and information. And we're gonna dangle that out there like bait, like a fisherman hands that puts this over the edge of the boat into the water. That's the bait. And then contact is made on the customer's terms. If they're interested and they want to know more and they think that we're trustworthy, they will reach out to us and say, "I saw your blog post. I read your article. I saw the thing on your internet page that you put out there, and it rang a bell with me, and I want to talk to you about this." Taking the magazine out of the middle, no more middleman, and that's the contact phase. And then if my company can do a good enough job convincing them that we're for real, we're telling the truth, we're trustworthy, we can give them all the resources that we had to generate our data, let them regenerate it themselves, just like they do in the medical industry, peer review. And at that point, if they really believe in us and that it works for them, then you come to the cash phase, the sale. Content to contact to cash. And a lot of people are nervous when you put all the power in the hands of the customer. But isn't that what you do when we decide to go to a restaurant? The restaurant doesn't come into our house and drag us down the street. We decide. I got 3 friends that tell me it's great. My brother went there and he says I'd love it. And I want to now try it. The content is inside of me. I make the contact with the restaurant. And if I like it, I come back again and again and again. And there's the cash. We've always had this model. Somehow, the Mad Men of the world, the Mad Men show.
Don Draper. Don Drapers are everywhere.
So they kept proliferating our need for them. And the internet took that all away.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. What your company has done is you've established authority in your space. And I find modern marketing, modern sales, modern education is really based upon establishing authority, becoming an influencer. And when I say influencer, I don't mean Kardashians, I don't mean Mr. Beast, I don't mean TikTok influencers. I'm talking about building technical authority so that your information is influential to the industry. And I find one of the biggest ironies is in the world of sales, frequently, the best way to sell your product is to not talk about your product. Because at the end of the day, if I were to be very callous about my own company, we sell cleaning machines. So what? Why do I need a cleaning machine? Well, you do. Right. I don't know why. So I can talk all day long about the size of our pumps, the CFM rating of our fans, the SPC stuff that's done, and that's not going to land. It's not going to land because people don't understand the root cause of their problem has to do with contamination, electrochemical. All they know is they have a problem. They don't necessarily know the root cause of it. So me talking about my product doesn't do any good. In your world, to some people, it's a commodity. I'll buy it from Indium, or I'll buy it from AIM, or I'll buy it from Kester, or I'll buy it from Alpha, or I'll buy it from, it's shiny metal in a tube to some. And it's not until they have a problem and they get the connection that the provider of a solution is out there. And instead of saying your stuff is 8 cents a pound cheaper or whatever, I see very little marketing from your company on the attributes of the brand. I see education on how to reduce voiding. I see education on benefits of low temp solder. You're not the only people selling low temp solder.
Because if you do accept the fact, and I don't accept the fact that the solder is a commodity, but we'll get to that later.
Well, no, I don't think it is either. But that was more of what the consciousness is from people.
A SAC 305 solder joint is a SAC 305 solder joint once it's made perfectly. But it's between getting from I have an idea all the way over to I have a finished product. Requires a lot of help and a lot of support and a lot of knowledge and information and experience, etc. And what we have done is what I call turn our company inside out. This is one of the concepts that I pervade through the whole company. It used to be in the Mad Men days that you would hire spokesmodels and you would dress them in a right out of the package fresh white lab coat and put them in some fantasy lab, take a photograph of them, and that was your ad. And so of course the customers subconsciously realized, wow, they're working in a perfect scenario, but I'm not, so I'm really distant from them. And boy, that man's hair is better than my hair's ever been. He's like a Superman, and I'm a kind of a messy lab guy. And ultimately, I can't even relate to this company anymore. And then when the company starts telling them about their product, what they're selling, it gets so far distant from the what the customer's concerned with. They've got a problem, a challenge, an opportunity. So once we developed this content to contact to cash, we realized we had to turn our company inside out and present our real people to the real people. In other words, If you're an engineer, you started hanging out with your engineer buddies back in 6th grade and 8th grade and in high school labs and in college labs. Those are the only people you've really ever hung with. Just like race car drivers, they only hang with race car drivers. Everybody smells like gasoline. That's their gang, and so that's who you're familiar with and comfortable with. So we put our real people out there to talk to our customers in the language that they've always spoken, in the phrases and terms and the metaphors that they've always used, and we developed a philosophy called "From One Engineer to Another." We eliminated me, the huckster, the marketing person. I'm the biggest threat to an engineer because I'm not an engineer. I'm not a person that has spent all that time developing products and determining physical properties and process parameters. But if I can sweet talk you into using my product, well, then I make a sale. But that's the worst thing that can happen in the career of an engineer, is to get duped by some huckster, spend their own company's money and time going down the wrong path, damaging their company's brand because they got tricked by a sweet, fast-talking dude. That's the worst thing an engineer can do. What they want is to rely on their own savvy and prowess, and you've got to feed them data and information and opportunity to confirm that. And that's what we do from one engineer to another. And that's why we ended up quickly with over 100 blogs. Not the Indium Corporation blog. We had the lead-free soldering blog and the no-flow underfill die-attach polymer blog. Because when people search for things online, like if you want to buy a car, you don't go to Google and type in car, or solder. If you're looking for solder, you're looking for what you're working on. If you're working with a no-flow underfill die-attach application, that's what you're searching for. So why wouldn't it make sense for me to have a blog with that title, only populated with topics and information on that exact specific topic? And this is proof to the industry that you really are about low temperature solder alloy development, because you have the low temperature solder alloy blog. I mean, who on earth operates that blog if they're not into it? And if you're on the customer side and you want that, you think, I've arrived. I found my people. And look at them. They're all messed up. Their safety glasses have smudges on it. And their lab coat's got a burn on it. This is a real woman. She really works in that environment.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of authenticity there that comes across. And one example, to your point, Rick, your own Brian O'Leary with his podcasts on the EV world industry. I've watched several of them. I've had him on my show, and this might make the Mad Men, this might make Don Draper want to fire him.
Yes.
But I have never heard him talk specifically about a product that your company sells in the whole context of the EV world that he lives in. He's never said, but wait, if you order now, we'll double your order. Operators are standing by. Circle number 10 on the bingo card. He has never come across that way. It is all about his world of EV infrastructure, reliability. And I think sometimes many companies forget one good thing about our industry is we are selling to engineers. We're selling to people who are pretty bright, who have proven that they can stick around long enough to get a degree and they can solve problems and they can and they know how to work through a technical situation. They're also smart enough to figure out this guy knows what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And I think once you get that connection, the authority, that builds the trust. And then there is a relationship where I long promote this. I don't know if I coined the name, maybe the name of this was already out there, but I call it guided discovery, where I've got a solution to Rick's problem. I can't tell Rick I'm the solution to your problem because Rick doesn't quite understand what the problem is. So I have to provide facts and data so that Rick can analyze, can discern all those facts and the data, and come to Rick's own conclusion. Okay, I understand what my problem is. I need a solution like this. Only then does talking about this make any sense, right?
You can't tell me that I love your linguine bolognese. You can tell me that you are trained in Italy, you've lived in Tuscany working for 20 years. You can tell me that you only source from organic farms and blah, 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 blah. I'll piece all that together. I'll listen to some people that I know who have eaten at your restaurant, and then I'll tell you if I like your linguine bolognese for the 100 reasons why I love it. And not just because you tell me it's cheap or you tell me it tastes great. The customer has to tell us what they want. We just have to enable them to see the truth. This reminds me of Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. Luckily for me, after I had implemented this system in my company, Simon Sinek's famous TEDx talk became well-known. And that made everybody in my company who was slightly doubting it nod their head and say, okay, that's it. I get it. I accept this. I encourage anybody who's interested in this conversation so far to go to YouTube and just type in Simon Sinek and Golden Circle and TEDx talk, and it'll change your life. That video is so short, and I've watched it, I'm not exaggerating, easily 20 times.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. And it is, we were already playing with it when I saw the video, playing with the concept of it, but it was such a relief to see someone who has gained authority, at least in my world, and that I trust, say something good about what we were doing trepidatiously. We were committed enough to start it, but we were still looking over our shoulder, for an exit strategy in case we were wrong.
Now, there are a lot of advantages to this. First of all, it reinforces the integrity of our people, because if our people are going to stand up and say, I think I've proven something really interesting, here's the way I did my experiment, and here's the data I generated, you're going to be crawled all over by scientists. And if they say, that guy's work is impeccable, that guy really did his homework, he did a nice job, that encourages people to want to talk to you and learn more and to actually appreciate you. It also respects the customer, because they realize right away you're not twisting their arm behind their back and marching them down the street to my restaurant. You're saying, I understand you like healthy food. I understand that you like people that use old world recipes and old world techniques. And I understand that you like blah, 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 blah. And if they keep nodding their head, yes. And if they walk in your restaurant, that's them being in control. People like to feel that they're in control. And I also think that there's a lot of time spent in the dance, in the traditional old-fashioned madmen ways of promoting ourselves in this electronics assembly world, where we tell you we're wonderful and you should buy from us. Any process engineer will tell you right away, you have just introduced a ton of non-value added time. Because now I've got to spend time learning about you. Are you telling the truth? Are you bona fide? Do you have the resources to reach the data you claim you've got? And I'm spending all my time evaluating you before I get to evaluate your product in my process. And it's non-value added time, and engineers hate that. So for all these reasons, there's so many advantages to just simply telling the truth. And by the way, none of us want a customer who's not a good customer for us, who's not deriving value and benefit, because eventually they're going to say, well, I bought something from Acme and it was a waste of time. And this super powerful third-party endorsement blows up in our hands. And we don't want that. We only want customers who say, I couldn't live without you. I love that company. They changed my career. That's what we want. So let them decide.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You work with a lot of young people. You kind of mentor some young people. Your company brings in interns and publishes that fact more than any. A lot of companies have interns. Your company embraces it and really makes that public, and then celebrates them at every year. I see that the stuff that your company posts, which is great. What's your opinion? No, what's your advice for young people entering our industry? We're to the point now where all the gray hairs are really actually starting to leave. Doug. I interviewed Doug Pauls the other day. He's finally leaving. Long threatened retirement is coming due now, and he's leaving very soon. I interviewed Dave Hillman, also from Collins, and he's out. He's out rafting around the world. Not rafting. He'd kill me for saying that. Kayaking.
Yep.
There's a certain vernacular you have to get right in that world. They don't row, they paddle. Right? They don't raft, they kayak. They've got to get it right.
Whitewater, the paddle in class 4 waters, that was my limit, but I know that world very well.
Yeah. You are retiring soon.
Retiring 12 days.
12 days. Okay. So to my point, people that have been around, people that know where all the process skeletons are buried, people that know how it really works, people who know who the best resources are to solve specific problems, they're all leaving. Young people are coming into the industry. We've lost a lot of subject matter experts, which is kind of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation. Is certain people within your company that knew all the answers may be retiring. We're going to find a situation where young people, particularly young people, are going to search for answers. And, you don't want to knock on the Wolf store to search for answers. You want to knock on the company that is authentic and transparent and has a goal of wanting to solve a problem and sell a product, obviously, but realizing they can't sell a product unless they solve a problem, and not just believe me, not noise, but value. So knowing that there's a lot of young people coming into this space now, what is your advice for younger people entering our industry in general and maybe specifically? Are there certain fields that you think there's a lot of opportunity for them to take advantage of? What is your advice for networking within their careers? What's your advice for continuing education? Because we all know when you leave college, you're educated in certain things, but then there's the real world, right? There's the tribal stuff that they don't educate you in. So what's your general advice for all that stuff and more?
To the beginning of the conversation, I told you I was super interested in material science and laboratory process technology and process development and materials development application-wise. But I knew myself. I knew me. I knew I loved science and technology and material science, process development. And I knew I loved to talk to people. And I loved to network. I loved to communicate. And I realized right then I'm learning a ton of stuff about the process and the materials and the applications. But I'm zeroed out on social interactions, and it was killing me. It didn't suit my personality. There are other people that were working in that laboratory with me that they were more introverted. Excellent scientists, excellent development people. They didn't need to chat about things and kick around over lunch, talk about the application of that material versus this material. They didn't need to do that. They were more in their own, they knew who they were. I had to move into a scenario where it required or enabled me to have a lot of interaction with other people. So step one, you got to know yourself. And when you're a young professional, you haven't had a lot of time to do that because you spend most of your life heretofore being told exactly what to do and when to do it and what chapter to read, blah, 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 blah. So when you're a young professional, start asking yourself, what about me? What do I like? I tell our interns all the time. I ask them, first of all, it's a trick question. What do you expect to learn the most about when you're on this internship? And they always say, well, I'm working with a material scientist in this arena, and I expect to learn a lot about this arena. And I always tell them, that's good, but more than anything, I want you to learn about yourself. Do you like a dynamic environment, or do you like to work on one project alone, or do you want 6 projects going on at the same time? Do you want to interact with a team of people, or do you want to work solo? Do you like a room that's kind of dark and quiet, or do you like a loud, raucous environment? That's more important than anything else, because that's you. You could be Bruce Springsteen, but if they ask you to sing opera, you're not going to win. You're not going to succeed. He knows where he belongs, and he gets on the right stage with the right song and the right bandmates, and Bruce Springsteen wins. He knows himself. That's the first step. Number two, communication is critical. You've got to share what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're interested in. You got to talk to people about it, and you got to ask questions. Like, be the world's greatest interviewer. Get on manufacturing floors and say, what do you do? How did you find that you liked this? Do you like your job? Some people will tell you, no, I don't like it. It's not for me. I'm going to move into the accounting department instead. Why do you know that? Talk. They're glad to talk. Meet as many people as possible. That's through reading on the internet. That's through going to seminars. After the speech is over, run up to the stage and talk to the guy who presented. I know you've done that. You've talked to people in the forums. You've been the guy that they run up to and talk to. That happens to me all the time too. Sadly, it's like 3 people when there are 5 other people that really want to know, but they just don't do that. Seminars, webinars, build these relationships in real life or online. I will never criticize any young person who's got a job. I don't care what you're doing. If you're a dog walker or a lifeguard at the beach, it's all good. It's all good. But if you want to be a material scientist, a process engineer, try not to be the lifeguard. Even when you're in high school, get a job somewhere with materials, somewhere with process, somewhere with applications of technologies to manufacturing. Try to make every minute count toward your career. Even if you have a vague notion of what career you want to be in, even if you don't know exactly you want to be a polymer material scientist, but just something to do with materials. Just get a job in the neighborhood. You don't have to be perfect yet, but get a job in that arena, because what happens is your resume, your CV looks so much more powerful than somebody who just worked at the mall selling Slurpees. I'm not knocking that person, but when I'm hiring somebody, if I see a guy who's been, since he was 16 years old, was involved in this technology in one way or another, whether it's building robots in the robot club or anything, I think more of that person. I think they're dedicated to this field. I just had a woman that I interviewed. Why did you do this even when you were in high school? I asked her. She goes, well, because I couldn't not do it. And every job she had and everything she's ever done was aligned in some way with what I'm hiring for now that she's graduated with her master's degree. And you can't compete with that if you've been selling shoes in the mall, which is a good thing, because most young people tend to not even have a job until they're older. So it's all good. But this is my advice to you if you want to get in this field, is be in this field and prove it.
Yeah, I completely agree. When I entered this field in this industry in 1985, so I'm a year younger. I'll take that. Mm-hmm. I felt like I really didn't belong. I was a square peg in a round hole, and it was just happenstance that I ended up. I took the job at a startup because I thought you go to a startup and 2 years later when the stock goes public, you buy your Lamborghini and tow your Ferrari or vice versa, and cash in your millions or billions. I was young and naive. But so this industry seemed like a good industry to capitalize on, and I was not an engineer like yourself, and so I felt very out of place. So I avoided socializing and networking because I was afraid. I had imposter syndrome. I was afraid I'd be outed, and especially when I started speaking at conferences on a very narrow subject, I was just. I just felt like I don't belong here. This is something, they let me in and they don't realize I'm not them. And so I kept my head down for a few years. And finally, once I built up the nerve and I realized, okay, no one's trying to kick me out of the club, then I started networking. And the only regret I ever had is I waited so long to do it.
Yep.
I think you dive in, you just dive in and, head first. And this industry is probably not unique. I'm sure other industries share this attribute, but we're very collaborative. we're an extremely collaborative industry. And, you go to a conference and you'll see competitors all talking about a solution to a problem in the same room. And
yes,
it's a bit surreal because they're arch rivals in the field, but within a technical world, it's extremely collaborative and collegial. So
yes,
yeah, I mean, get the fear out of your head if there is fear. Dive in, ask questions. People love to mentor. You're a great mentor. Your company is a great mentor to young people. And people love to teach. People love to mentor. And people love to be asked questions, most. I mean, I'm sure we have a few sociopaths in our world. That I'm sure every industry does. They crawl out from under a rock, complain, go back under. But for the most part, I think this is an industry where if you show just a tiny bit of initiative and interest, that
yes,
you could propel yourself very rapidly through this industry. And this industry is so, even though we're all the electronics industry, it's so diverse within that bubble of electronics. There's so many areas you can go. So yeah, I agree that young people are obviously the future because we all can't live forever. And I don't fear. You officially become your father when you start a sentence with kids these days, right? We've all become our fathers. And yes, everything that our generation complains about, some of that is accurate. But then look at our generation. We were, free loving hippies, at least my extremely young days. And, we ended up okay. And now we're the ones complaining. So I think the future's in good hands, and I think there's a lot more opportunity. There was a lot of opportunity when you and I got into this business. I think there's way more opportunity now, and it's moving at a faster rate. However time it took us to get to wherever we are in our career, they'll get that done in 1/5 the time if they
absolutely
show a little interest.
Totally. And I'm thinking now about the title of your whole entire program here, Reliability Matters. Your reliability matters. If you're a new entrant to our marketplace, you enhance your reliability as a trustworthy source, as a partner, as a colleague, by spending as much time as possible in this field, meeting the people, developing a network that you can fire off a quick text message and say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I'm learning about this, and can I ask you 3 questions that are really perplexing me? And this network will circle around you and take good care of you, and you will become a much more reliable source because you're operating at a higher standard, at a higher level than a person who doesn't feel that sense of responsibility to and from the people in the industry.
Yeah, that's very well said. And thanks for saying that because it does wrap it into the theme of the show. Well, reliability, we spent a lot of time in the show talking about specific processes and best practices and procedures and things like that. But reliability does begin with people. And without the right people, without the right reliability mindset, you're not going to have reliable products. So that's why we do spend some episodes like this talking about people and processes, that are higher octave level, not down the rabbit hole technically, because we will get there. Last question. You're retiring in 12 days, I think you said. So by the time this airs, you will, if I can quote Zach Brown, you'll have your toes in the water and ass in the sand, so to speak. So what are you going to do with your retirement? What's your plan?
Well, I have spent a large portion of my life serving the students, especially students in the refugee community in my area. And it's just so rewarding to see them accelerate their integration into society and to self-actualize much faster than had somebody not mentored them and helped them and assisted them. And so I'm going to increase my activity in that mentoring world, as well as sleeping late and watching movies and reading books and internet research. I love internet. Everybody watching this probably is like that. Anybody who's watching your program probably is a total geek about information and data. So I have to tell the truth. I'll be spending a lot of time looking stuff up and creating all sorts of weird questions for Chat GPT so I can get a ton of information back, focus specifically on what I'm interested in, and then I can bore my wife by telling her these crazy things.
Yeah, my wife and her friends call me, and I have to think it's a term of endearment, but I'm kind of stretching there, that I'm the idiot savant at the table, right? Hey, ask me the most random question and I will have an answer for it. But I can't tell you anything valuable, but I can tell you stuff that is more trivia than anything else, right?
Even if you're going out shopping and on a Saturday afternoon, like I can't stand an inefficient route. We have to drive from here to here to here in just the right way. It makes the most sense, and integrate the times that the stores close so that we make sure we achieve our ideal theoretical maximum goal. And my wife is like, can't we just go drive around?
Now you have a band. I know it's called the Rick Short Band. I've listened to some of your music. It's impressive. You plan on increasing that activity as well?
Well, what I've done more and more is shift to studio recording. I used to have a real cohesive group of people in a band. We would record music together, perform together. It just gets increasingly challenging. There's something different today than there used to be in the old days, and it's hard to wrangle all these people together. So I've been increasingly relying on studio musicians and recording in studio, and I'll be doing more of that. I've got literally a couple hundred songs that I want to get through and get them recorded, and that's the most efficient way. There I am being efficient again. That's the most efficient way, and lower drama. There's always, I have a rule, Rick Short rule of being in a band. The minute you add one person to the band, there's too much drama, and it gets worse from there. So I'm going to emphasize recording my music.
How many, all the great bands, I'm a 70s rock person. So, all the great bands in the 70s have broken up how many times,
Yeah.
The Eagles said that they won't ever play again until hell freezes over. And then that became the title of their album. They all come back together and they still tour. They all hate each other and they still tour because I call it, kitchen remodel money. All of a sudden the money is more important than the feelings for their partners. All right, Rick. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for all you do at Indium, and thanks for unknowingly inspiring me to, give me the confidence to that the decisions we had made, we weren't alone in that world. Indium's still in business. My company's still in business. So clearly we didn't kill the company, right?
Right.
With our radical ideas. And I see more and more companies starting to do this. It's really starting to show. So we're making progress on our cause. And great luck in retirement.
Thank you so much.
If you're like me, I'm kind of semi-retired, but I'm quite busier in retirement than I was, when I wasn't formally retired. So
right.
I assume you will share that same experience.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I'm as successful as you.
Well, thanks. All right, Rick. Well, thanks for sharing this with my audience. Thanks for all the work you do with the refugees community and all of that. And I wish you nothing but success. And thanks for being my guest. It's always cool to talk to you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, that's another episode. Thanks for listening or watching the Reliability Matters podcast. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to Reliability Matters on your favorite podcast app. If you're watching this podcast on the Reliability Matters YouTube channel, be sure to click the like, subscribe, and bell icons to be notified when new episodes are released. We release new episodes on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. A special thanks to Circuit Assembly Magazine's PCB Chat at pcbchat.com and Ascendo Reliability at reliability.fm for syndicating the show. Thanks also for your questions and episode suggestions. Please keep them coming. I love to hear from you. Send comments or suggestions to mike@mikeconrad.com. Just remember that's Conrad spelled with a K. Once again, thanks for listening or watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and perhaps most importantly, keep doing it right. I'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thanks for listening to the Reliability Matters podcast. Join us on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month for new episodes of Reliability Matters.